It's now time for the news review section where we delve deeper into one of the day's top stories. Now, Swedish police clash with demonstrators protesting against the Israeli genocide and the regime's participation in the Eurovision competition. The initial peaceful rally in the city of Malmo turned violent when police forces stormed the gathering with pepper sprays and arrested a number of protesters. It's estimated that around 5,000 pro-Palestinian demonstrators peacefully marched through the city while waving flags and chanting "Free Palestine." They finally gathered outside the arena hosting this year's Eurovision's finals to demand the disqualification of the Israeli competitor. Similar protests have taken place elsewhere in Europe. In Greece, people gathered in Athens' central square carrying pro-Palestinian banners calling on international organizations to stop the Israeli crimes in Gaza. In the Spanish city of Madrid, thousands also gathered to demand an immediate ceasefire in the besieged territory. Now, to talk more on this, we are joined by Mr. Christopher Halali, researcher and political analyst from Wiltshire, Vermont, and also Mr. Tony Gosling, investigative journalist from Bristol. Gentlemen, welcome to the news review section. Mr. Halali, beginning with you. First of all, your initial thoughts on what's happening in Malmo, and do you think it has stemmed from the student protests in the US?
Certainly, I believe that over the past, 7 months, 8 months longer, we've seen a tremendous outpouring of support since October 7th for Palestinians, especially since the ongoing genocide has commenced following Israel's invasion of Gaza. So we've seen tremendous outpouring and support all over the world. Of course, people have to understand that Malmo in Sweden is a very multicultural city. There's a lot of refugees, people who've moved there from all parts of the Middle East or Southwest Asia and from North Africa. And so this is very much the Sweden of Kofia, the famous band, as well as Olof Palme. You have to imagine that there's always been a tremendous solidarity movement with the Palestine liberation struggle. And so seeing these images, we recognize that the people in Sweden stand on the side of justice. They stand for the Palestinian people under this brutal assault and ongoing genocide. And of course, they are protesting the participation of Israel in Eurovision. I mean, after Russia's special military operation, the West moved so quickly to kick out Russia from every international organization and festival or any sort of event that was happening. But in this case, with an actual genocide going on, Israel has not even been removed. It's in fact been lauded and been given a greater visibility and access to these kinds of events. And that's a real shame. And that's what these protesters are advocating for, that Israel be barred from these because of this ongoing genocide.
That's right, Mr. Halali. Mr. Gosling, as Mr. Halali said, the demonstrators are angry that the Israeli contestant was allowed to participate, comparing it to the Russia when Russia was banned because of the war on Ukraine. Now, protesters say it's hypocrisy. Mr. Gosling, your thoughts on that? And it seems that Israel and Israelis are always treated differently. Why is that the case?
Well, it's a good point. Why is Russia not there? Russia is west of the Urals, is in Europe. Israel is not even in Europe. How has it managed to smuggle its way into the Eurovision contest? Well, the answer, of course, is bribery and the Israel lobby. And also, if Israel's going to be there, where is Palestine in this competition? Look, it's really very little to do with music, Eurovision. I think really ever since maybe the 1980s, it's actually a geopolitical circus. And just look at the way that in 2022, Ukraine was helped to win the competition. That was 2 years ago. Tonight, the winner is Switzerland. These are all the most wealthy countries and all countries where the Israel lobby is very strong. And so it's really very little to do with the quality of the music, which I might say, you could actually walk in the streets of Bristol, the city where I am tonight, and you could hear better music being created by buskers on the streets. And I'd be one of those people that would be throwing them a few coins, because the actual quality of the music at Eurovision, I think it characterizes the rottenness of the whole competition and the way that it's trying to be used in order to make it appear that such and such a country, this is the best that they can manage. And actually it isn't. It's part of the music industry, the factory that churns out a machine that churns out music for the markets, which is actually really very little to do with the music that comes from the heart, which is the sort of stuff that actually was used in and won the Eurovision contest back in the 1970s.
That's right, Mr. Halali, talking about double standards, the first semi-final of the event began with Palestinian-Swedish singer, I think it was Erik Saade, wearing a black and white or Palestinian keffiyeh around his wrist. The European Broadcasting Union reacted to the move, saying, "We regret that Erik chose to compromise the non-political nature of the event." However, the Israeli representative song is called Hurricane, previously titled October Rain, in an apparent reference to the Palestinian resistance movement Hamas's October 7 attacks. So how come that was allowed?
Of course, as my colleague rightfully pointed out, this is a politicized event. And so the fact that you cannot have a keffiyeh, but you can have a song that speaks about a deeply political issue, and an issue that is now at the center of an ongoing genocide, is of course revelatory of the hypocrisy that we have. The fact that this is all quite laughable if it was not so tragic. The fact that Palestinians, Arabs, Muslims are always on the receiving end of a lot of these European powers, many of them former colonial powers and neo-colonial powers today. And they continue to exert that influence. They continue through other means, be it in arts, culture, in academics, in sports. They continue to push their agendas, and they continue to malign liberation movements. They continue to malign the people of Southwest Asia and North Africa, in fact, all of the African continent as well. And so you see this, and you have to understand that this is but a microcosm of the greater geopolitical struggles and upheavals that we're experiencing. And as my colleague rightfully pointed out, the fact that Russia was not there and that Israel was there is very indicative of what kind of festival this is. This is actually a festival of horror, because this festival is going on in the midst of a genocide, when people have been saying for decades, never again, never again. And now we have a genocide, a real genocide. And countries are calling for sanctions, they're calling for an end, they're calling for ceasefire, they're calling for provisional measures at the International Court of Justice, and nothing is being done. But they are like Nero, fiddling away as Rome burns. But I'll tell you one thing, this has only strengthened and hardened the hearts of all those who are struggling for Palestine, because they realize this hypocrisy, and they are moving faster and growing in numbers as they continue to confront these powers to avoid this genocide and to continue to struggle for a free Palestine.
That's right, Mr. Halali. Mr. Gosling, talking about the momentum, do you think these types of pro-Palestine, anti-Israeli protests will further expand, maybe to future international or important events?
Well, look, let's be quite clear. They already are. Many events, if there is some sort of Israeli presence here in Britain, have been being protested outside, and we have weekly big protests in the cities. Usually it's alternate, so out in the provinces of Britain, in all the major cities, you'll have a demonstration, and then the next week a massive one in London. So this is already taking place. But I think it's interesting to look at the media aspect of all of this. The media, this is putting on this show, the TV people, and they are really the people responsible for providing cover to the Israelis in the West for this genocide. I mean, you know, look at the, for example, Microsoft. I was looking today, the stories online, which are explaining about the United States blocking these arms shipments because of these war crimes in Rafah. They are being blocked by Microsoft, by MSN Network, which is is one of the central hubs for getting news stories. You click on one of those and it's actually blocked by so the media, whether it's internet or mainstream television, legacy media, newspapers, are all responsible for this. They should be talking about the sorts of things that I've been investigating over the years, the people that control the NATO countries, the politics of it, the Bilderberg conferences, for example, which we've just revealed is going to be taking place in Madrid at the end of this month. And it's in Madrid mainly because the Spanish have been pushing back against the Ukraine war and pushing back against the British support for genocide in Gaza. Down in Gibraltar, the Spanish have been doing that. So these major war lobbies, they decide they're going to go to Madrid to try to keep the Spanish government and population in control. Those are the sorts of things that the media should be concentrating on. The secret rulers behind the scenes who are pushing war, making money from war, but we don't see that at all, I'm afraid.
There you have it, Mr. Christopher Halali, researcher and political analyst from Versailles, Vermont, and also Mr. Tony Gosling, investigative journalist from Bristol. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. And with that, we come to the end of this news review section. Thank you for listening.